The day Roman Reigns announced that he had leukemia, that Monday Night Raw, that day, we have a PWP Nation private chat that the team talks in. We're all friends and we talk about wrestling all the time and other stuff, whatever. And that night, I was suspicious of the timing of this leukemia. The whole thing came off to me very strange. And of course, my first instinct was like shock. My first instinct was shock. Like, whoa, dude, this guy just was in Hell in a Cell. And last week on Raw, he got beat down pretty badly by the heels. And now he's battling leukemia. So I immediately started to research leukemia, and there's different forms. I mean, WWE wasn't specific in telling us really anything about this leukemia at all, or his diagnosis throughout. The man behind Roman Reigns, Joe Anawahi, was very private throughout this whole leukemia battle. And I'm suspicious. I'm still suspicious, and I'm more suspicious tonight after watching Raw. Now, I'm not saying he's not sick. I'm not saying he's never had leukemia. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm not the only one out here talking about this, but and I hope I'm wrong. However, there's so many indications in my mind, and maybe my mind works differently than the masses for a lot of reasons, but I saw many indications that this might be a way to push this Roman Reigns agenda to kind of get him cheered in the big cities. Now, in the next few weeks, we have Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Boston, Brooklyn. I'm not sure what order those are. I know Philadelphia is next week. I might go to that show. But at the end of the day, the timing is weird for me personally. The way he came back tonight was strange. The T-shirt, the adulation, the announcement that he's in remission, and then I became even more suspect when he came out and was throwing around Superman punches and spears. Guys, I hope I'm wrong about this, but throughout this entire time frame that Roman Reigns was out with cancer, he did a lot of different things. And one thing was he was in a movie with The Rock. And I'm not saying that's impossible or even implausible that he would be in a movie while he's battling leukemia. We also saw him on the sidelines of a football game. We saw him doing a Nickelodeon show. WWE really didn't stop mentioning him throughout this entire time frame. Dean Ambrose at one point even said that Roman Reigns got cancer for his sins. And not only including that, just including, with this Dean Ambrose angle, Dean Ambrose turned on Seth Rollins that night that Roman Reigns announced he had leukemia. The entire thing to me just seems very contrived, and I hate to even believe that, but it's just true. But in any event, it's just my belief that I have some suspicion here, and I'm glad. The bottom line is I'm happy he's okay. I'm happy he's fine. I'm happy he's healthy, and he's overcome whatever battle with leukemia he was having, or whatever was going on here. But I'm coming off very uncertain here for a reason. That's because I'm trying to be very careful with my words. I never one time said that he doesn't have leukemia on social media or anything, but I just feel like there's a little more to this than meets the eye. But in any event, glad to see Roman Reigns back on Monday Night Raw. A good way to kick it off, and I'm sure he's going to be on a amazing. I'm sure he's going to be an amazing return tour and sell a ton of T-shirts. So I'm sure that he's going to get cheered in all these big cities that he's been booed in notoriously for years. One of the things about this, I'll say one more thing about this, man. Then I'm going to move on because I don't want to be on this for too long. But WWE with their philanthropy all year long. I mean, they bang us over the head with a steel chair ad nauseum, month after month, with their philanthropic ways. And, Stephanie McMahon has been quoted on her own Twitter page in saying that philanthropy is the future of marketing. I believe I have that quote, the exact quote somewhere. Maybe I don't. I didn't pull it up here. I don't have it. But she said something like philanthropy is the marketing of the future. And this was in 2015. And all we've seen is philanthropic efforts from WWE, whether it's Connor's Cure, Susan G. Komen, Make-A-Wish Foundation. And Roman Reigns was really the poster child for that entire campaign, marketing campaign, as Stephanie McMahon admitted to. And we all know marketing, the definition of marketing is clear. And when you take marketing and put it in some, and I'll look up the Stephanie quote just so you can know for sure what it is. Stephanie McMahon's quote, and this was on March 28th, 2015. You can find it on her Twitter page. I quote, "Philanthropy is the future of marketing. It's the way brands are going to win." She didn't say this, but this is something she retweeted. Something she posted from a guy named Stone, co-founder of Twitter. So I mean, look, she is a proponent for that. She clearly said it, and with their philanthropic efforts over the past decade and more, for basically the entire time WWE's been a business, they've had philanthropic efforts in one way or another. So with that being said, when they beat us over the head with philanthropy all year, and they're going above and beyond to start these charities and give money to these charities and promote these charities, and then suddenly Roman Reigns comes down with cancer in a very weird, auspicious time in WWE where ratings are floundering, attendance is going down consistently. They were in a situation where they haphazardly turned Braun Strowman heel. They really didn't know what to do next. You have the Shield together. You got them against Dolph Ziggler, McIntyre, and Strowman. It just really wasn't that strong of an angle. Dean Ambrose turns heel, and now he's fighting Seth Rollins. I mean, the storyline doesn't work if Dean Ambrose turns heel on both of them, because he doesn't have the whole authority backing him up like Seth Rollins did. So they had to deviate from the plan. I'm suspicious, guys. Ambrose, and this is where things continued to get weird for me when it comes to this whole Roman Reigns situation. Listen, guys, at first, I'm going to talk to Periscope for a second too. At first, again, he came out and he talked to the WWE Universe, and it seemed so authentic and legitimate and just real and organic. Like Roman Reigns, what he did tonight was perfectly executed in every way, shape, or form. They're going to sell a ton of t-shirts. He's going to get cheered miraculously in every city that they go to. They have coming up Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Boston, Washington, Brooklyn, Montreal. They've got just this murderer's row of major WWE cities where Roman Reigns notoriously gets booed out of the building. There's no chance. There's a slight chance we might see a little bit of, WWE Universe just having a good time with Roman at some point here, where they do boo him like they used to and stuff. But I doubt it. I think he's going to be universally cheered. This is his return tour. Nobody messes around with cancer, and they're going to sell a ton of t-shirts. So with that being said, I was totally fine with the open, with him coming out and explaining to the WWE Universe that he's back and he's in remission and everything's cool. But now they're going back to the Shield. Dean Ambrose got beat down by this heel group, after a fantastic match with McIntyre that turned into a schmaz with Elias getting his revenge on Ambrose. And I'm sure this is going to lead to a match at Fastlane or something where Elias is probably going to go over Ambrose in some way, shape, or form. But Ambrose got beat down by the heel group of Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and now Elias. Okay? 4 heels. Dean Ambrose getting his ass kicked. We saw what happened to Braun Strowman at the pay-per-view at Elimination Chamber. He got a triple powerbomb through 2 tables. Call that a triple-double, man. Through 2 tables, took him down. Shield style. And it was said on commentary, just like the Shield does, It was said for a reason. And tonight we saw what the reason was. Here comes Roman and Seth Rollins to make the save. Seth with a chair. Roman with the Superman punch, brother. And he looked great. The guy looked unbelievable. He looked fantastic. And I'm sure we'll see him back in the ring ASAP. They're not going to wait. If he's out there throwing Superman punches and spears, he's cleared. He's completely cleared. Like he's going to wrestle at WrestleMania. If I'm not a Roman Reigns hater by any stretch of the imagination, I've never been one. I've only been suspicious of this entire leukemia battle. And again, I'm not going to be apologetic for my suspicions. I'm only asking questions. And I think more people should ask questions about mainstream stuff that they're fed, especially in the media and anything mainstream. ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, all the Fox, all these mainstream publications. I will always be suspicious. Okay. We just saw Jussie Smollett last week, I believe his name is. He's a Hollywood actor, somewhat popular on a major TV show. He faked getting beat down by as a hate crime. And they had a noose around his neck and everything. And I don't have to go over the story. I'm sure everybody knows it. Who do I think Reigns fights at Mania is the question. I think he's probably going to be in some kind of tag team match at this point with Dean Ambrose, or get fully involved in the main event feud of Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar. So he's going to do something at WrestleMania. I think that's for sure. In the opening segment, he did say, "Let's walk before we can run," or something. Well, you ran tonight, brother. You ran tonight. He ran down to the ring, hit a couple Superman punches. I think he hit 3 of them. They looked fantastic. And then he hit a devastating spear on Elias. Listen, again, I hope I'm not right about any conspiracy theory or suspicion. But let's take a look while we're back on this topic before I get to the awesome finish of Raw. And Raw, and I'm going to talk about the end of Raw. The end of Raw was the best finish they've had to Raw in probably years. The end of Raw was one of the best finishes they've ever had to Monday Night Raw. As well, maybe not ever, but in the modern era at least, we haven't seen a finish to Raw like this in a long time. But while I'm on this Roman Reigns Shield reunion thing, let's talk about Vince McMahon for a second, okay? And this was my original thought when Roman Reigns announced that he had leukemia. Vince McMahon, okay, and he's a genius. I've loved Vince McMahon my entire life. I used to have him on my wall. I just recently took him down. I've always been a fan of Vince McMahon. Hi, Chris. How you doing, man? I've always been a fan of Vince. I looked up to Vince from a marketing standpoint, from a sales standpoint, from an entrepreneurial standpoint for many years. The guy's one of the best businessmen of all time. He created pay-per-view. He's a fucking visionary. He saw the where the business was going. It was going from a wrestling company to a content creation company, and that's where we're at right now. But he's responsible for some of the craziest storylines in history. Let us not forget that Vince McMahon was responsible for Terry Runnels faking a miscarriage on Monday Night Raw. They worked a miscarriage. Now, a miscarriage is nothing to joke about. You know what I mean? It's not. They exploited, okay, the night after Brian Pillman died of a drug overdose, the night after they had Brian Pillman's widow live on Raw, crying about the death of her husband. Very strange to do that for a lot of reasons. When the guy just overdosed and died, Brian Pillman, tragically. I know it was 1997, but I already talked about that, Chris, earlier in the show, man. You got to go back. You can watch the replay here on Periscope or watch it on YouTube, as I'm filming live on YouTube as well. Vince McMahon is also responsible, and I'm cutting through a lot of it. He's also responsible for faking his own death. He blew himself up about 12 years ago on Monday Night Raw at the conclusion of the episode. The limo blew up right after he closed the door when walking into the limo. Now, anybody who had a brain knew this was a work, knew that Vince McMahon didn't die that night. But WWE treated it like he did. They had multiple superstars sending in their condolences. They had Stephanie McMahon crying in the middle of the ring, saying, "I miss you, Dad." This is all out there, okay? This is nothing new. There's plenty more. Vince McMahon was live on Raw, pulling things out of Jim Ross's ass after Jim Ross had to take time off because he had to have some kind of surgery that involved his ass. So Vince McMahon was on Raw, pulling barbecue sauce, pulling a cowboy hat, pulling Mae Young's hand baby, whatever else he pulled out of Jim Ross's ass on Monday Night Raw. We're dealing with Vince McMahon wrestled God on a pay-per-view. Vince McMahon he had Trish Stratus crawl around in the ring and bark like a dog. All right, that's it. I'm done. Vince McMahon is a sick, twisted old man. He probably has had more concussions than any of us can ever imagine or think about. How many times has Vince McMahon been cracked over the head unprotected with a steel chair, or taken bumps late in his aging process, 50, 55, 60 years old? You know, taking ass kickings in the middle of the ring, headbutted by Kevin Owens in the middle of the ring last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was. Am I saying Vince McMahon has some form of CTE and maybe going a little batshit crazy? Is that a stretch? Is that a stretch to think Vince will take a risk like this? Especially with nobody ever being able to prove that this was a contrived story? I'm suspicious, guys. I'm not saying Roman Reigns isn't sick. I'm not saying he wasn't sick. But after this Shield reunion at the end of the show, I'm more suspicious than I was to start the show. I'm more suspicious than I was last night. I'm more suspicious than I've ever been that this is some kind of weird, contrived story. So at the end of the day, I'm suspicious. We don't know where they're headed, except for the fact that we're probably going to see the Shield versus a group of heels from here on out until WrestleMania. There was no sign of Brock Lesnar tonight. There was no talk about the Universal title at all. They need something to do from now until WrestleMania, and they're on this gauntlet of big cities just in time to bring Roman back. Looks like Love Pipe Bomb says Ambrose leaving is a work. I don't think that's a work, dude. I don't think Ambrose leaving is a work. I think Ambrose can re-sign at any moment he wants to. All he did was give his notice. It doesn't mean he got released. Any wrestler, with all these wrestlers leaving, how do you think that's a work? Hideo Itami, Ty Dillinger, the Revival said they wanted to bounce. Sasha Banks has alluded to wanting to bounce. There's backstage paranoia that wrestlers want to leave. Yeah, he mentioned it briefly, but again went right back to Roman, as they've done for months now. They've planted seeds for this to happen for months. Yeah, WWE stock's fine, man. Buy it. I'm not a financial advisor, okay? By the way, I'm not a financial advisor at all, but I'm high in WWE stock, eclipsing $100 per share around WrestleMania, especially with Roman Reigns returning. I'm probably going to place an order today or tonight before I go to sleep, just so tomorrow I get some residual from this good publicity they're going to have for Roman Reigns being on Good Morning America and all the mainstream stuff that's going down. But at the end of the day, they're back to the Shield. It's a recycle. It's a retread. They're doing it again. They're going to the well once again, and they'll probably somehow help Seth Rollins win the WWE Universal Championship at WrestleMania.